This is Jessica.
And this is Kelly. And this is the Chasing Brighter
podcast. Kelly, I know that we're obsessed with longevity, having glowing skin, healing our gut, and I love Warrior Strong wellness products. We talk all the time, the multi-collagen protein powder, the collagen tides and bone broth, but I'm also obsessed with the ashwagandha. It really helps me manage my stress levels and stay calm. Kel, are you adding ashwagandha into your routine, your supplement routine?
I am. Jess, you remember I was having all these this stressful situation happening with my kitchen reno, and I started taking 2 of these a day in the morning. And I just noticed a level of calmness that I'm able to sustain throughout the day that really helps me not feel so anxious.
Yeah, I was taking 2 in the morning and 2 at night. I stopped taking my 2 in the morning because I was like, is this really doing something? And then I feel it. You know, when you wake up and you're stressed, you kind of feel it in your stomach, you feel it in your chest. Just taking 2 in the morning really helps me feel calmer. And if you check it out on Warrior Strong Wellness, coupon code Chasing Brighter, that's one word, Chasing Brighter, for 10% off. Welcome. Kelly and I are so excited today to talk with Janet Handley. She is a Reiki Master, healer, and spiritual teacher. Kelly and I often talk about Janet because we join her on a weekly Zoom meditation, which is amazing. Janet is passionate about helping others navigate their spiritual journey. She has helped many people through spiritual healing by practicing and teaching Reiki Healing, spiritual development courses, past life regressions, and clairvoyant readings and channeling. In 2004, she became a licensed healing therapist here in the U.S. and has been working in New Mexico most recently. We're so excited for you to hear our talk with Janet. Enjoy. So welcome, Janet. We're so excited to have you today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
We'd love to hear your story, love to hear a little bit about how you got to where you are today. And randomly, Kelly, we just had a guest, right? Didn't a Broadwife just go to the Canary Islands?
Oh, yeah.
And where did you live in the Canary Islands, Janet?
Lanzarote.
Yes, that's where she was. How crazy, small world.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, beautiful there. So, well, where do I start really? At the beginning. And the first thing I really remember as a child was the fact that I was probably about 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't speak mind to mind with everybody. Mm-hmm. I was desperately trying to communicate that way. And I don't know where that came from, but finally I remember giving up because it wasn't happening. But I was brought up in the UK. I was the youngest of 3 children. And the next thing, and this is all sort of spiritual, bringing me to where I am today. I remember being able to see, and I didn't know what it was, people and shapes in the dark. So that was disconcerting. But my parents were not interested at all because they were struggling to put food on the table and keeping us all clothed. So they didn't want to hear the fact that their youngest was looking for support because she could see all these things. So again, I just shut them away.
Yeah, I kind of put it
so close that door.
Yeah.
And that didn't worry me. And so I moved on. And I had a few challenges when I was a child. I probably, again, at the age of about 7, we lived what was termed in the country. In those days, I mean, it's part of London now, the London Borough, but then it was very much rural. And so I was walking home from school. Again, I think I must have been about 7 or 8. And it was raining. And I had my raincoat, boots, satchel on the back. And I came over what was a hump in the lane where the railway went underneath. And on the other side of this hump, there was a puddle, I thought, of water going across the road. So I thought, I'm going to wade through that. So I get in the middle, and all of a sudden I'm plunged into a 10-foot hole. But I remember it to this day. I felt anxious, but my mind was full of, okay, I need to get to the side. Well, fortunately, my father had taught me to tread water. We used to go once a week to the swimming baths, and he taught me to swim. So I'm in the middle there, and I'm kicking my boots off because I couldn't do much with them on, and I'm moving towards the edge. Well, I got to the edge, and of course the edge was crumbling away all the time I was trying to get out. So I thought, that's no good. So I get back to the middle. And as I'm in the middle contemplating, this truck, as we would say in the UK, this lorry came along, saw me in the water. He walked in and said, "Give me your hand, love." So I put my hand up. He whooshed me out and put me in his truck, and then said, "Where do you live?" So I told him, and he took me to the door. My mother nearly had a blue fit, and she said, "Oh, come in, come in." He said, "No, I'm on my way. She needs a hot bath," because it was winter time.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember that very clearly. And as I was growing up over the years, several things like that happened to me. But I just managed to think logically, and it was almost as though my brain wasn't giving the information. It was an intuitive experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I grew up and moved forward through these experiences, I became aware of being able to know that things were going to work out, even though they didn't look as though they were. As I moved through my life, I realized that every time I tried to force something to happen, it was difficult. And I came up against challenge after challenge. So as I moved on and became more aware and open and when I had 3 children, all varying stages of the challenges that go with that, I finally, we moved from the UK to the Canary Islands, and we opened a business. We had a business in the UK, which was a garage and car sales. And when we moved to the Canary Islands, we opened another garage, and we sold tires, and my husband repaired cars. I learned the language so that I could communicate with the bank, parts people, all the administrative and that side of things was my responsibility. And then, of course, my husband was an engineer, and he was able to repair anything. But we moved on from there. And what happened was in 1994, suddenly Barry passed away. And that was an eye-opener in itself, because I realized, and my youngest son at that time was 15.
Yeah.
When that happened so suddenly with no real warning, and as we moved forward through those challenges, we made a decision that we would never, ever make anything a problem. Because if we could move through this, we could move through anything. And so we did. And I continued to run the garage and tire fitting center, which is what we had by that time. And I was in the garage one day and I had a phone call from a friend and said, "Janet, I've got a Reiki Master coming over. Would you like to learn Reiki?" I said, "What's Reiki?"
Yeah.
"A healing therapy." I said, "Well, tell me more." "I don't know." I said, "Put me down." And from then, which was in 2000, I immediately understood many things about not only our physical experience, but our energy being. We are powerful, loving beings who have not been able to understand because we haven't been exposed to that side of our abilities. But now things have opened up so much that we are all beginning to shift and change. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that is how I became very connected with everybody, really.
Well, and I want to go back a little bit. What, you had 3 young children when you moved to the Canary Islands?
No, they were not. I only had one. That my son, who was I have to think 13 when we moved
So
there.
you uprooted, went to another country with another language. What kind of sparked that move?
Well, we had a garage in the UK, and building developers had actually approached us to sell our property because they wanted to build on it. And we realized that we were running our garage. We had 3 managers. It was a small business, but we had car hire, we had parts, and we had repairs. And then what happened was all our staff were working 5 days a week. We were still working 7 days a week, and quite involved. So we decided that we would sell up. Then we went to the Canary Islands on holiday and decided that we loved it so much, that's where we would be.
You would stay there.
And so that's what happened. But unfortunately, the developers took such a long time for the planning to go through that when it did, the developers were unable to go through with it. So we were left with either we started again in the Canary Islands or we started again in the UK. Yeah. And we decided that we would start anew in the Canary Islands.
It sounds also quality of life. Was the quality of life better?
Oh, yes, yeah. Very, very much so. When we moved there and when we lived there, you didn't have to lock your vehicle. You never locked your door. Mm-hmm. My son was able to walk freely down to the front, to the beach, with no thought of any issues whatsoever. Whereas in the UK, by that time, things had got very, very concerning.
Yeah.
For young people about. So,
and when I hear like you're talking about, because I talk about that in the way I explain it is like getting lost in humanity. And so it's like what I'm hearing you say is that like you tried to kind of control things for your life and tried to make things a certain way and thought things were a really big deal. And then with the sudden passing of your husband, it kind of made a shift for you of pulling back and looking more at the big picture and realizing we have no control. And then that shift to kind of living in the flow.
Absolutely. That was the very, very first start of it. And then, of course, doing the Reiki course and allowing the energy and the power. I didn't understand it to start with. I just performed using the energy. I talk about now an electromagnetic grid which surrounds the earth. I know it's there. When I was a child, I used to see it. I used to be able to see it, but I know it's divine love, and it's where we are connected. And so I would just go through the procedure that I had been taught and feeling the energy and knowing it was working. And at that time, I was still running the garage, and people would come on holiday, friends or acquaintances, and they would say, Janet, can we have a healing? And I would go round to wherever they were staying, and whether it was sitting in the chair, whether it was laying on the bed, whether it was laying on a kitchen table, it didn't matter. It works anywhere.
Yeah.
So that was a great joy to me.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great motivator for opening up to the joy. This is the important thing that I have learned over the years, that life is a joy and should be a joy. And if it isn't, we need to find what it is that is holding us back. And we can all do that.
Yes.
So you kind of, on a whim, took this Reiki healing class.
Yep.
And how did you, maybe you weren't even able to recognize at the time being drawn to that, but when you first were in that class, like what thoughts, or how did you kind of change by just going through that experience, or what sort of lit up within you in that moment?
Well, when you take Reiki courses, Reiki 1, there is an initiation that opens up the chakra centers. It connects you to the energy. And my Reiki Master, Elaine, she said to us, she explained a little bit about the energy, and then she said, the first thing we're going to do is the initiation. So you're going to be blown away by this. So just know that this is exactly what happened. There was 4 of us on the course, and we all had to sit and then close our eyes and just relax. So we are doing this, and Elaine is going around quietly, and I'm sitting there feeling a wonderful energy of peace and love. Then all of a sudden, I felt this energy on my stomach. And this voice said to me, okay, Janet, you're not going to believe this. Do you remember when your mother had a miscarriage before she had you? Because you and I were the babies. We came in, we grew, but I couldn't come. I had to go back. I wasn't ready. And so I'm sitting, and she said, but I've come now, because my daughter was expecting her second child. She said, I've come now, and I'm waiting for you to come over before I'm born. And when we came out of our initiation, Elaine said to everybody, now, what did you experience anything? And people were going around, and somebody experienced colors, somebody deep love, somebody absolutely nothing. And then it came to me, and I got in my head, give it exactly as you got it. And so I did. I explained that this voice and this energy said that my mother, and I knew my mother had a miscarriage before me, and we were 7 months. It was 7 months, and it was because she wasn't ready to come.
Wow.
And so the miscarriage happened. But it was decided, she told me, it was decided that I would come first and she would come later. But there we are. And that's exactly what happened. And then, lo and behold, when I got over to the UK, and that was a month later, I got over to the UK because my daughter asked me to come for the birth of her second child because she'd got a 2-year-old. So, of course, I jumped at that, didn't I? And it was a joy. So I arrived on the Sunday evening and Sunday late afternoon, and I'm sitting on the couch and having just a relaxing time. Angela said, Mum, do you think you can do some Reiki healing on me tomorrow morning? I'm feeling a bit tired. I said, yes, sure. So, right. She's laying on the bed. This is Monday morning. Normally, I would start at the head, but my hands went straight to the belly. I got, well, at last, where have you been? I have been waiting for you. Oh, I'm coming now. And I was so taken aback by this voice. Anyway, and sure enough, I did the Reiki healing. My daughter said, oh, I feel really great. Let's go to the shops. I said, could I have a cup of tea first? Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, Mum. Yes. So we're having a cup of tea, and all of a sudden she has contractions. And I said, oh, but she didn't know what contractions were because with Freya, she had a cesarean. Mm. Anyway, she said, oh, let's get going before this, I said, well, just let's hang on a minute. Have you got your case pack? She said, yes, I did it last night. I said, well, let's just see. Sure enough, what happened? Half an hour later, we're on the way to the hospital and I'm taking Freya home. And the next thing, getting on to the next thing, was when Daisy came out. That was her name. Daisy and Angela came home. Daisy would not sleep. She was crying and crying. First night. So I said to Angela, look, you've got to get your sleep. Mm-hmm. Leave her to me. So I picked her up and I'm sitting with her on my shoulder. And she says, I don't want to be here. It's too loud. I don't want to be here. And I'm saying, okay, Daisy, now come on, you are here now. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. And so I did healing and healing. And for 2 nights we did this. And then she warmed up to being here. But her personality was very, very much anxious to start with. And then, she moved through it. But I was, so you can understand how I became so interested in the connection that we all have. This is not me special. This is just me opening up to an area that everybody else has on the planet. So
And I remember you talking to me that you didn't know, correct me if I'm wrong, that there were like different levels of Reiki healing, that you had a training, you were healing for several years, and then found out you could go on to further training.
Well, that's right. I think that was very true. So from my point of view, I think Reiki 1 is something that everybody would benefit from because it is intuitive, it is easy. You don't have to think about working with people's chakras, although I do have to say a lot of people that I have taught, as soon as they've got started, they have opened up to tremendous energies. But then it's the same old story. If you don't use it, you lose it. It's the same. So, yes, yeah. It's exciting. I love it when I'm able to help anybody to learn or to have Reiki.
So when you talk about that everyone would benefit from that level 1, what is it? Kind of go into a little deeper about what is that for everyone? Is it kind of learning about our energies, learning how we can kind of channel and connect ourselves to?
Well, it is more how the energy feels, and when you receive an attunement, it does open up the energy centers, chakras in the palm of your hands. And as you bring the energy in, you can put your hands, anybody can do this. If you, just something simple, if you have some cut flowers, for example, if you put them in the vase and trim off the stem a little at the bottom, put them, and then put your hands around the flowers, you can feel an energy and you can feel it's erratic. And so you just bring down that divine energy and then you wait until that agitation has disappeared, and it will disappear. And then you know the flowers have had enough, and you'll find they'll last a lot longer. You can do it with plants. You can do it with animals. Animals love it. Just the same sort of simple procedure. Just bring down that divine love into your body and then use it, feel it in the palms of your hands. And then it is settling and healing for the body and for whoever or whatever you use to channel that energy into. So energy is all around us and we can raise it up with the power of crystals, raise it up with purely sound. There's so many ways of bringing light into the body. So,
and it's like when you were saying when you were 5 and you kind of wanted to speak telepathically to people, and then that started happening to you after your level 1 training. What kind of happened that got you studying, looking at your bio going to Australia and studying psychic spiritual development?
Well, because I went over there, and a very, very dear friend of mine, she taught spiritual and psychic development. And how I knew her was I had a lovely friend of mine since the age of 5 from the UK. And she married a Welsh guy. And this friend of mine is his sister. And she came over to the Canary Islands the year after Barry passed in 1995. Mm-hmm. And she asked, she came and we had tea together. Myself and my son went over to Kathy and Tony's, and Marilyn was there, and we had tea. And Wade started it off. He said to Marilyn, "What do you do in Brisbane?" And she said, "Well, I'm the minister of a Christian spiritualist church." And he said, "Well, what does that mean?" She said, "Well, we believe in God, but we also believe in the afterlife, and the fact we have many lifetimes." He blurted out, "I know one of my lifetimes." And she said, "Yes, I know you do." She said, "You were on the Titanic, you were a stowaway, and you went down with the ship." He said, "How did you know?"
Wow.
Because he had told me when he was 8 years of age, he had come out into the kitchen and said, "Mum, come and see this." So I went in, and there was the old movie, black and white movie of the Titanic. He said, "I was on that ship. I was on that ship." And he said, "You don't believe me?" I said, "Yes, I do believe you, but I shouldn't tell anybody else." And he never did. But that, until that moment. And then she gave him his name and how old he was. And then I realized there was another area of learning that could be very beneficial to us all. And so that's when I went back over to Australia. And while I was there, I did an intensive course. I was there long enough to do that. And then I came back, and when I first came to America in 2002, then I did 6-week courses for people, and 1.5 hours a week group, and people were amazed at how they opened up to various aspects, and everybody has a different ability, actually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you provide, a lot of services. Obviously, you do Reiki healing, and with all of your training, you do spiritual development courses, clairvoyant readings and channelings. I am interested in, or I want to ask questions about past life regressions, because you were talking about how this church believes in having, past lives and, reincarnation, and I've had over the years clients wanting to do that. I've had clients this isn't something I have a ton of experience on, but like it makes sense to me because now what we're talking about so much is inherited trauma, inherited trauma and carrying the trauma with you. And so that can make sense to me where I'll have a client and they're just like, I just don't feel right. And they'll ask me, do you know anybody I can go to for a past life regression? And they have found that very healing and it's kind of created some closure for them. So what would you say are some benefits or why would a person want to try a past life regression?
Well, I think intuitively, more so now, we are aware that this is not our first time down here. And when we come to understand that we have been coming to this planet for thousands and thousands of years, we've all been doing very many different things, and some of them have been an awareness that has stayed with us. It's almost like a déjà vu. In the respect that I've been here before, I've met that person before. And of course, yes, you have. And sometimes when I have regressed people, they have worked through the same issues time and time and time again, and haven't realized that, oh, well, I need to address this now. I need to know that I don't need this. So an experience that, or why is my brother or my sister so obnoxious to me? Or worse, you might find that in a previous life, that you've actually been the subject of their passing. So but everything is part of our development, our moving forward and experiencing and letting go. Nothing is a mistake. Everything is as it should be, because we have to learn, okay, I let it go. You may suddenly find that you have lost everything. You've got nothing. It's all been stripped away from you. Allow it to be, because there's nothing surer. We come in with nothing and we go out with nothing. And how much of the articles, things that we collect over the years, how much do we really need to be who we want to be on a lighter, loving energy level? So everything that comes to us, we have to allow that and work through it with help and guidance. Nobody is alone. We are all connected to one another.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. All of us working together.
Yes. That's the key.
Thank you, Janet, so much for joining us today and sharing your story. This was so great to, again, hear about your history. And, I love how you, work and love helping people navigate their own spiritual journey.
That is my love, my passion.
Thanks for listening and joining us today.
And don't forget to follow us on social media at Chasing Brighter or on our blog, chasingbrighter.com.